Welcome back to Library Choice YouTube channel. Today's class we'll learn how to make this beautiful bishop sleeve with tie. Okay, so there is a tie at the end of the sleeve, and then we use the slash and spread method to achieve this sleeve. It's very simple to make and it's really lovely. If this is what you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so now to make this is actually a bishop sleeve, and I'll be using slash and spread method to make this sleeve. Excuse me. So I have my basic sleeve ready now. It's a long sleeve, and the length that I'm working with here is around 24 inches. So my actual length is 21, but I just added this extra 2 inches so that for the puffiness around the wrist area, because I don't want to use my exact measurements. So now I've cut this out. This is my basic sleeve, and then the measurement that I used on the upper part, which is 8 inches, is what I maintained for the lower part also. I did not shape this sleeve. It's just a regular basic sleeve, and I just took it down straight, because assuming I want to shape this, remember I will just take my wrist measurement, put it down there, and then connect it to my underarm. But I just maintain the same measurements all through. So now to get my bishop sleeve, now depending on the amount of slash lines that you want to have, like I said, this is 8 inches, so I'll just make, you can do 8, you can just mark 1 1 inch intervals each like this, and then you have around 8 slash lines, or you can just do 2 2 inches interval, whichever one you want to do depending on the amount of volume you want to introduce in this. So let's say I'm adding 1 1 inches interval. I'll have that now, and then I'm going to connect it together. So I may want to do another one here so that it will be easy for me to connect, and I'll have something straight. So this is a half scale sleeve, which means this part have to be cut on fold. So you need to indicate that when you are cutting it on your fabric, that this part has to be on fold. So now I'm just connecting my points so that I can get my slash lines. You can see this is me connecting the points together. So I'm connecting all the 8 points that I marked. So like I said, it doesn't have to be a line of 1 1 inch interval. You can do 1.5 inches, you can do 2 inches, depending on how you want your, how many slash lines you want to have actually. So now I'm just connecting this, then after connecting it, I'll slash it open. So after you slash this open, you can take a fresh pattern paper and place it on it and spread it, or you can just spread this directly on your fabric, which I think I'll be doing. So I'm just going to put my fabric on fold now, and then place it on it and spread. So these are my slash lines. Now the next thing is for me to bring it up now, and then I'm going to slash it open. Okay, so you just cut through it, but you're not going to cut it completely. So from bottom to the upper part. Okay, so you cut the next one till you slash all your lines completely. Okay, so all the lines have been slashed now, as you can see. So I just put my fabric on fold. I'm using a wall face fabric. So this is the fold point. So this is the fold point that I indicated when I was drafting, so you can see. So you make sure that this point is actually matching with the fold point like this. You can hold it with a pin, then after you do that, you start to spread it. So depending on how much you want to spread it and the amount of fabric you have to work with, but for me, I'm just going to be spreading it like 1 1 inch interval in between each of them. So after first one now, I'm going to place my tape rule, measure 1 inch, and place the second one. Then I'll place my tape rule, measure another 1 inch, and place the second one like that. So like I said, you can actually do this directly on your fabric as I am doing, or you just place it on a fresh pattern first before you spread it. Okay, whichever one you want to work with is actually okay. So now I'm pinning this in place because I don't want it shifting, and then I'll start to spread it. So now the next one, now I'll spread this by 1 inch. Like I said, I'm just going to place my tape measure. Now I'm spreading by 1 inch because I don't have much fabric actually. You can also do 1.5. So I'm doing 1.5, then I'll place my tape rule and then connect it. Then after connecting it, I'll place it again, measure the 1.5 inch and place it till I spread everything out. Okay, now so they've all been spread. Now the next thing now is for me to cut this out. So if you don't already have allowance on this, you need to connect them and add your allowance. But I already have my same allowance, so I'm just going to cut directly following the lines that my paper have already marked out for me. And then here also I'm going to cut it out directly. So it's actually simple cutting directly on your fabric, but you may want to cut on your pattern first if you are not so sure. So here also I'm going to cut the upper part. I hope you can see it. Okay, so on the upper part now I'm just going to follow exactly what I have on my paper, and then I'm going to cut it out also. Okay, so now this is cut out and this is what we have. So now the next thing is to remove this now. But before we go, for the wrist area I'm going to be cutting a long strip of fabric, and I want it to be around 3 inches band. Okay, so I'm just going to see what I have left on my fabric here, and then I'm going to fold it and put it on fold. So like I said, I want it to be 3 inches, so by the time I open it out it's going to be 6 inches. And if I sew it, I'll still have around 2.5 inches left, which is okay. So if you are not closing it, you just measure 6 inches and cut it. But if you are closing it up like this, if it's on fold, I'm going to measure 3 inches, and then I'm going to cut out these 3 inches for my band. So now we'll take it to, so you should make it as long as possible. I'm just using what I have left on my fabric. So if you have enough fabric, just make it up. So if you have it long, you'll be able to tie it anyhow you want. Or I'm just using this. So now I've cut this out. Now I'm just going to notch the midpoint so that it will assist me when I'm gathering this. So now I'll remove this. I'll remove the pattern from my fabric, and then I will go and run a gather stitch. You can actually gather this as you go, but I'm just going to be running a gather stitch, and then I'll gather it to my wrist measurement. So my wrist is actually 8 inches, as you can see, and it's not too tight. So I'll gather this to 8 inches, which is my wrist measurement, and then the midpoint that I noted here. Okay, so remember I noted my midpoint, I notched it. So when you remember we are gathering this to 8 inches, so when you want to place this now, the midpoint is going to assist you. This is 8 inches, so you place it here, you place 4 inches here, 4 inches here, so that by the time you fold it, your gathers will be in between these 8 inches, and then you have this left over to tie it. And like I said, you can see that it is small, so maybe I'm still going to join to it by the sides, I'm not sure. But I'll just take this now, this hem to my, can see is big. Now the slash and spread has helped us to introduce volume to it. So I'll go over now and gather this to 8 inches, which is my actual wrist measurement, and then I'll bring it back before I sew it to my band. Okay, so this have been gathered now. I have 8 inches here, and then I left the 1 inch allowance that I'm going to use to sew it. So now the first thing I'm going to do now is to imitate like I am sewing it, because remember this is gathered to my actual wrist measurement and there is no elastic here. So for the hand to be able to go through it, I'm going to be leaving like maybe 4 inches or 5 inches here before I start to sew my underarm. So now if I leave this now and then I sew my underarm, remember my seam allowance will be pressed inwards like this. So now to sew this to my band, I'm going to maintain this and press this allowance inward before placing it. So now I'm just going to place this now, and like I said, I have gone ahead to join more fabric to this. So now my center seam now has changed. So I'm just going to notch this new center point, and then I'm going to place this right side facing right side, and then I'm going to sew it. Okay, so remember to always fold this in, and then you're going to shear it in between to have a central point. So now I'll take this to the sewing machine now and sew it. Then after sewing it now, I can now fold it in and cover it up to have something this neat. Okay, then after that I'm going to fold this now and sew my underarm together. So okay, so now I've sewn it and I just thought to show us this. So now I just placed this and then I folded in the allowance just like I said, and then I sew it. So now you just match your, that was why we notched this. So this center point now, you match it to the center point that you notched there also. You fold it in and then you place it on it. Then I'm going to hold it with a pin. But remember that we have a long rope that I want to tie. I want it to be neatly finished. So now this long rope parts, now I'm just going to place them against each other, right side facing right side. I'm going to sew it and then I'll sew it inside like this up to this point where my gather starts. Okay, so you can see up to this point. Then after sewing it, then I'll be able to turn it out just like I did for this. So after sewing it externally like this, I'm going to turn it out so that I'll have something in, so you can see how neat it is here. And then after turning this other side also, I'm just going to place this on it and then close it up. So after sewing it closed, now the next thing is just to take the side seam together then, and then I will sew it also. Then I'll take it to the mannequin so that we'll see what we'll have. Okay, so now I've sewn it on the underarm as you can see, and I left around 4 inches at the hemline, 4 inches close to the hemline, so that the hand can easily go through, because if I sew it completely you can see how tiny it is. So now if you turn this to the right side, this is what we have. You can see that it is looking neat. So now once you wear it, you tie it anyhow you want. So I'll just take this to the mannequin so that we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what our bishop sleeve is looking like. You can see what we have here. The upper part is not gathered because we do not let our slash and spread get to that part. So you can see how voluminous it is on the lower part. So see how big it is. So if you want it bigger than this, you just need to spread it more. In my case, I used just 1.5 inches in between my slash lines, but you can do as much as 2, 3 or 4 inches. So this is what the band is looking like. So now this is the band and I just tied it here. So now it depends on how long you want your band to be, and then you press it well so that it look really neat. So if you don't want to use a band like this, you can just create a casing there and then pass an elastic to gather it, or whatever it is that you want to do. But this is really classy and beautiful. I hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.